Good afternoon, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm going to hand over to Raya, who's going to introduce the session today.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. You might be on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. My name is Raya, and I'm a Glion Master student. I have the honor of being part of a live panel today with another fellow Master student, Jyoti. We're going to be in conversation with industry expert Jonathan Humphries, who happens to be the head of development and finance specialization at Glion, and also the chairman of his own company, HoCoSo. Along with my colleagues, we will start with a live discussion, and afterwards you will have the opportunity to ask questions in the comments below and hear what we have to say to you. So we're going to kick off this conversation by asking a question to Jonathan. Jonathan, what initiatives have you been working on in the past few months, and how did you pivot during the pandemic?
Thank you very much, Raya. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. We wanted to keep this session as interactive as possible, so we look forward to your chats and your comments as we go along. So your question, Raya, is essentially, how did we adapt to this new situation that we're faced with today? And I think adapting is one of the key words. What we've realized, and whether it's at Glion in terms of going from in-class teaching to online teaching to hybrid teaching, trying to organize virtual events to in-physical events, is the unpredictability of the future. And I think that is the new situation that we're faced with, the uncertainty and unpredictability. And along with that comes a need for us all, whether it's as individuals, leaders, teams, organizations, to adapt and respond in the right way. So it's really about getting the balance between acceptance and resistance of this new situation that we find ourselves in. So as a consequence of that, one of the initiatives we set up pretty early last year was around helping executives and leaders and hospitality professionals build their resilience. And resilience is not a fixed state. It's not resilient. Resilient means that you're fixed. Resilience means you're dynamic. And this was really a program that was set up in collaboration with many companies and also with Glion, in order to help people be more resilient, have more resilience for the future. So that is one of the key initiatives that we set up and to help the industry and individuals through this new environment that we find ourselves. So Jyoti, I know that obviously you've had a lot of experience prior to doing your master's at Glion, and you were working in Hong Kong. You were in a company called Nosh during the lockdown. And we also wanted to understand from your perspective about how you were in a position to adapt and respond to this new environment that you were faced with. Because I think it's important for the audience that they have different examples and experiences, and I'm sure they have their own as well, which would be great if they also share with us in the chat as we go along.
Thank you, Jonathan and Raya. Hello, everyone. I am Jyoti Hemlani. I am a Master's of International Hospitality Business student from Glion, and I just finished my first semester here. As Jonathan mentioned, I have 5 years of work experience in F&B in Hong Kong, and most recently as a sous chef. I worked during COVID and had to adapt the working environment for my team. One of the biggest challenges we faced was making our team feel safe to come into work, while most of the country started working from home. In hospitality, you can't work from home. The approach we took was to embrace the new environment and reassure our teams our commitment to their safety and well-being. We then translated our commitment to our team with our commitment to our customers' safety by increasing our safety measures in the production kitchen. This was one of the ways we were able to stay in business and also grow it during that period. Just a reminder, everyone, please keep posting your questions and liking the ones you find relevant. We will answer them closer till the end. So Raya, I know you went on a field trip in Switzerland the day companies reopened. How was that experience?
I would like to say it was a very touching experience because it was very nice to see people back together and back to life. And we learned a lot, especially in conversation with directors, managers, leaders, because people don't necessarily want to stay and work from home, but they would like to have the freedom of having the option. So the option of working from home once a day during the week, which you said is not possible in hospitality, but it could be possible. Amends could be made. And I think the challenge now comes for managers to decide how they can make everybody feel welcome and wanted as part of the team. And bringing people back to the same old office and the old working hours is never going to work again, because we have a chance to create better working conditions and better experiences. And this is the moment to improve leadership and cultural approaches, no matter which industry and which sector you're working on. And this is going to lead us to the 5 C's that Jonathan talks about and stresses on very much. Jyoti, can you please explain to us very briefly what the 5 C's are? And then we can go on to Jonathan to tell us about his favorite C.
Yes, so we've been talking a lot about the 5 C's. I'm sure everyone is very curious to learn what they are. Well, we believe these are the critical points to consider when rebuilding businesses post-COVID-19. The 5 C's include connectivity within the team and with customers, collaboration between different teams and companies to provide a better service, an emphasis on community, building and supporting the community around us, offering customizable products and services, and finding creative solutions and concepts to better serve our teams and clients. They're all linked through considering not only our clients' needs, but our team's needs too. So Jonathan, what is your favorite C?
It's interesting. I wouldn't say I have a favorite one. I think they're all very powerful in their own way. But the one that really I think is the bedrock is the collaboration. And I think that it's the one that connects them all together. And I'll expand on this a little bit more. So I touched on resilience a little bit earlier. Through the research that has recently come out on resilience that we've done on the executives, those that had the most resilience through this crisis and felt that they had the most resilience and were able to adapt and respond, they had the strongest networks of collaborators, which are basically very close colleagues, very close friends, very close confidants. And they were able to pivot and change themselves and their businesses in a way that was beneficial and that they could take the most advantage of the situation, which means that they were able to weather this storm in the most appropriate way and also position themselves in a new way going forward. So I feel like the collaboration is really, really important. And I think that comes through on an individual level, but also if we talk about things like innovation, and if we're looking at, today, there's so many questions about the industry itself, right? And if let's just take any company in hospitality today, they're going to be thinking about, am I relevant? How can I be more relevant? How can I have a longer term solution that is able to be more flexible? How can I have the right staff with the right mindset? How can I have the right training programs in place? How can I engage with my customers, even though I don't really know what their needs are because they've changed? I don't know what's happening really with corporate travel, this whole hybrid that you've mentioned. What's going to be happening with that? I don't know what's going to be happening with leisure. Maybe I have to cope with these huge peaks and these huge troughs. So the opportunity is really about bringing together organizations, companies, and individuals that can really share their insights, their knowledge, their expertise, and collectively then create the solutions going forward, whether it's for education. We do a lot with industry at Glion, bringing experts together and academics to drive the programs of specializations forward. as an example. And then also within industry, creating new concepts. So maybe what I could talk about is a very specific concept, and then to give the audience here an example of a collaboration that touches on all these different 5 C's. So we have a concept here called My Hair, which we're going to share with you. So hopefully you can see the visuals here. And just to give you a little bit of perspective on this, what you can see here is the movement through the room called My Hair. So this was a concept that was created for a conference in London called the Sleep Eat Conference, which is all around innovative concepts. And this is a room for the future in the year 2030. And the idea here was to push the boundaries in terms of what was actually possible from a room. As you probably know and have seen in the industry, there's a lot of innovation around technical process, around food and beverage, around public spaces and communities. But very little has been done in our view around the room, and in this case, luxury room. And this, what you're seeing here is actually one room that can be converted into 5 different states, depending on what the actual guest would like to experience. And they can actually select that particular state, whether it's for, work, whether it's for partying, whether it's for feeling well, whether it's to have more of an extended stay. So the opportunity to customize the room before you even stay is the principle of this. And then, so you've got like these fixed elements that you could choose from, 5 different packages of room that are all one room. So for a hotel, they could gear all of their inventory to a particular room type if it's the high demand, say during certain days, and they could shift their room type to another type depending on the segmentation on other days and other times of the year. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there's the opportunity for the guest to fully customize their room. And we believe that customization is one of the key attributes for any guest going forward, but definitely at the luxury end of the spectrum. So Raya, I think you have a question.
Yes, I do. I wanted to ask you, where would you draw the fine line between luxury and automation? How can you still offer that guest experience if everything is automated? I know that you can and that we can as an industry, but where do we draw the line?
So, Raya, you were breaking up a little bit. So I think your question was around technology, and it's about how can we use technology in the right way to enhance the guest experience.
And still keep it luxurious.
And still keep it luxurious. Okay. Can I just park that question for one moment? Sure. And I'll just finish this little bit, because I really wanted to explain to the audience the collaboration about this innovation. And I think what was really interesting about this particular example for this competition was that this was a wildcard entry. So the other competitors were all from big companies who had put together teams internally to create a concept. This was a wildcard entry, and it was a collaboration across industry and academia. And so this was with a brand agency and an architect agency, our company, and students from the specialization from Glion from 3 consecutive years, and from the hotel school, The Hague. So they all came together. So, and the agency, the brand agency was Reardon Smith, and the architecture agency, the brand agency was Delight, and the architecture agency was Reardon Smith. And the opportunity to create something that was purely from a blank piece of paper on a collaborative basis was very powerful, and this was the output. To address your question around technology, how can technology be used? I believe technology in this particular instance is around the guest being able to prepare and communicate their stay beforehand. They can select what kind of room type they want and how customized they want it, so that everything is really set up before their arrival. Mm-hmm. Also, the way that we see technology going forward is that the standardized processes where there is maybe more of a process interaction is becoming more automated, and the guests can do a lot more of that themselves, and that frees up the hospitality professionals to really engage with the guest in a hospitable way. And they can then tailor make their communication and services to the guest on arrival and pre-arrival and post-arrival, rather than it being process orientated. So that's how we see that. And a small example here is around sustainability, which is the opportunity for the guests to completely interact with the Internet of Things, which is the setup of the room, and also see their energy consumption and see the benchmark of the hotel across all of the guests that have stayed. And then that they can also then have different pricing and maybe benefits based on their energy consumption. So for example, if they wanted to have a longer shower, 20, 30 minutes instead of 5, 10 minutes, they would see their energy consumption, and then they can decide how much they would want to pay on that. Or alternatively, maybe how much they wanted to offset and maybe donate to a charity that was connected on a sustainable basis with this concept. So that's kind of the role that we see within technology, as a small example.
Yeah, I think I can't wait to stay there, first of all. And I really think that the latest trend in hospitality post-pandemic is going to be sustainability and how you think about your ecosystem and the country where you're in. So I think this project mixes everything together, and I can't wait to stay there.
I think it does, Raya, absolutely. So I think for the audience, that's an example we wanted to share. So I think we can maybe stop sharing that now. I think everybody's seen that. I'm just wondering if there's any questions that have come in from the audience that we could address at this stage.
Let's check the questions. Okay, I'm going to choose one. Okay. What concepts do you think will be relevant in 5 years? Sustainability, wellness. I think we just kind of touched base on that, sustainability. So I think how, as a guest personally, if I'm at a hotel and I'm paying a big amount of money, I do want to have all the options in the room, but I still want to be sustainable. So how do you think that can be done? How can the hotel still give me everything I want, yet consider the environment? Jyoti, you can also feel free to answer that, because you worked in Hong Kong, which is...
Yes. Well, I've seen some examples in F&B, specifically sustainability with the packaging, the kind of food you produce. I saw some examples online about how hotels are now cutting out the breakfast buffet. Instead, they have they grab and go. Yes. So it is a little bit more sustainable, because you're not wasting food in a buffet setting, and also you are reducing the risk of any contamination. And having the grab and go selection, you can limit how much you waste. So sustainability comes in not just the electricity consumption, but I think also food consumption and food waste in hospitality.
Yeah, and your labor force, I think that's a huge part of sustainability as well. Hiring locally and the way you treat people is sustainability. And sourcing locally. It's not only about recycling and about raw materials, it's also about humans. So we have one more question, and I'm going to address it to Jyoti as well. Jyoti, you were in Hong Kong, the epicenter of the pandemic, and the hospitality industry took a very big hit, and it's still taking a hit because all the hotels are reserved for quarantine by the government. So how do you ensure stability for the employees? How can they still be motivated to show up to work every day in such an industry where they have no human interaction and literally only put food at people's doors? What do you think the future, or how do you see? I mean, you were preparing meals for people in quarantine as well.
Yeah. Well, yes, in Hong Kong, the situation got pretty bad pretty early on. a lot of the hotels had to retool. Instead of being for leisure and for business clients, they became quarantine hotels. That way they're able to maintain their business. They had to adapt to the situation. As Jonathan mentioned, you have to adapt. The hospitality industry is very, very agile. And so, for our teams, to make them feel safe, we just had to, reassure them that their jobs are safe with us, that we will care for their safety, that there's so much more ahead. This is just a temporary thing that's happening now, and we rebuild from that.
Thank you, Jyoti. The next question is for Jonathan. Jonathan, I would like to ask you, do you think that small hotels that are suffering from the pandemic and have a chance to be bought by Starwood or Accor should go into that as a lifeline, or do you think they should try to reinvent and remain independent? What would you do if you were a hotel owner in such a pandemic?
Okay, maybe I answer both questions. give a view of the first question as well, because I think that we've got to maybe differentiate between what is an expectation and maybe what is a need. Okay, and I think the expectation going forward around concepts and organizations being more responsible is very high. And so I think if I look at initiatives which, for example, by the Hotel Asset Management Association, which is the largest association of hotel owners in the world, they have an initiative which is all around the environment, sustainability and governance and diversity. So what they're looking for is really all the assets that they're owning in the future to be really relevant in this space, because they see it as an expectation, the same way that we had the same expectation around technology maybe 10 years ago. Going forward, the concepts, they have to be relevant, they have to combine. Going forward, I think the 3 Ps, which is around people, planet, and profit. And I think there's, that we've seen a movement towards B corporations, which are really focused on these triple bottom line, whether it's funds, whether it's hotel companies, whether it's institutions. And so I feel that is more of an expectation. So that's the first thing. So if you're not even going to be able to meet the expectations of consumers going forward, you're already going to be at a disadvantage. You already need to be playing in that space. So that's, I think, the first thing. The second thing is a need, right? So what do consumers need going forward? And we've seen a lot around experiences, and we've seen a lot of concepts moving towards experiences. Right. And then we've also seen a lot of concepts move towards enhancing physical health. Right. If you look at things like retreats and things like that. I think what we have to realize is going forward, consumers are going to be very discerning. They're going to be looking at how they spend their time, which is going to be the biggest luxury. And then what they're going to be doing is they are going to then choose concepts that resonate with them on a personal level. And I think the biggest challenge that we see today, having gone through this crisis, is obviously around experience, physical, but also around mental. So people are looking at places that they can regenerate, they can rejuvenate, and they can renew themselves. They want to feel better when they leave than when they arrived, whether it's for business, whether it's for leisure, whether it's blending both of those in a pleasure concept. And so I see a big movement in more the well-being initiative going forward as a need, and then the sustainability and the environment and the diversity as an absolute requirement. Mm-hmm. So I think that maybe puts things in context for the next part of your question, which is around smaller companies, smaller hotels. So should they be looking to, let's say, plug into a bigger distribution system? So I think there are benefits, obviously, around loyalty programs and channels and things like that. And I think those benefits have been highlighted a lot by the bigger companies today. However, the channels going forward are really, to a certain extent, also going to be driven by the consumer in terms of what the consumer experiences and whether the concept is right for the consumer. So I would just encourage smaller companies, smaller hotels, to really position themselves very strongly, that is really geared towards the future needs and expectations of the consumers. The stronger their positioning, the more the consumers are going to find them, the more they'll talk about them, the more that they're going to be relevant. And the more that they are saying, it's fine, we're okay as we are, then they will need other solutions. Because I just don't feel that consumers today are just going to stay somewhere just for the sake of staying somewhere. I think they're looking for a lot more.
Yes, people are very conscious about where they put their money nowadays. I mean, I don't think anyone is willing to spend the way they used to before the pandemic. Definitely.
Absolutely. I think maybe we could also start asking some questions to the audience here.
Yes.
What do they think? So Raya, I'm going to have, and Jyoti, I'm going to hand over to you to engage.
Okay, sure. So yeah, many of the audience, we can see greetings from all around the world, and I'm sure many of you are alumni. So we would like, and if any of you are in the hospitality industry, we would be happy to discuss with you what you've been going through. So please let us know in the chat, and Jyoti and I can have a little conversation. We can talk about what you've seen in Switzerland so far. We know that Switzerland is somewhere that was, of course, hit much less harder than other countries in the world, but many like Switzerland companies were still hit hard by the pandemic. And how can you compare that to other countries?
So I know in Hong Kong, it was a bit devastating. There's lots of small businesses that had to shut down. It was very difficult to cope. And one of the reasons the company I worked for survived was because our model was, I think, kind of worked for the pandemic. We produced meals and delivered it to our customers. There was no seating, and it was all healthy food. So it was about wellness. It was all sustainable packaging. It was a way for us to address what customers really wanted, and we're really able to grow during that time. In Switzerland, when I first arrived here a few months ago, everything was closed. And to slowly see the business open up, see the community come out, we really see how the businesses are trying to cater so much to the community, to bring them back in, to make them feel safe, the different safety measures they're doing, just so that the community feels safe to come in, so the teams feel safe to come back to work. And I see that, it's slowly rebuilding to what it once was.
Definitely, Jyoti, thank you. So we have a question from the audience for Jonathan. Jonathan, it's about triple bottom line, looking at sustainability around people. How do you see the future regarding sustainable recruiting and empowering employees towards a digital future?
I think it's a great question. And there isn't an easy solution for this. One thing that we know for certain is that the roles in, whether it's corporate offices, whether it's on operational level, they're going to be changing. And it makes sense that going forward, there is more local decision making, so that the businesses, whether and the operations can adapt very quickly to the situation as it's occurring. I keep going back to this whole concept of adapting. You can only adapt if you empower your team to make decisions and allow them to take risk in a certain environment. And even if they make mistakes, you say, if they did it in the best interests, then allow them to make those mistakes. So I think that's really important. We should look to how we train our people with the right mindset, that they are confident in the environment that they're in, that they feel comfortable to be able to make decisions and to make mistakes. So I also see this as more of a mindset in terms of recruitment and also retraining of our teams and organizations and staff that allows them to accept the situation, which is totally uncertain and unpredictable, so that they're not in a position where they're resisting and wanting things to go back to the old normal. So I think this is around cultural change. I think that's really, really important, but it has to come from the leadership. The leadership in any organization instills the culture. And so I see and I know this was a little bit about technology, but I think if we're talking about sustainability, it's not just about the supply chain of goods from, let's say, farm to table. That's one aspect. Sustainability is also about having a sustainable business that can weather through all of the different challenges that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. We don't even know what's going to happen next week, given everything that's going on. But what we want is that our teams are in a very good place, physically and mentally, and also from a collaboration perspective, that they can just feel free to adapt and change and make suggestions and respond fast. And I think that's the thing. It's about speed. It's about speed to change. Yeah, and you need that loop, right? So they need to be able to put things into the market. They need to test things. They need to get the consumer feedback, and then they need to be able to change going forward. So maybe that's a long-winded way, but I really feel it's not around specific skill sets. That needs to be a given, but in addition, it's all around mindset.
Soft skills.
Absolutely, which I think, that is one of what I've seen at Glion and with the students at Glion. That is one of the big benefits of the students coming from an institution like Glion, which is really focused on that aspect around collaboration and connectivity.
No, for sure. And I really think psychological safety is very important in the work. I mean, if someone is not happy, they will never perform. And being safe and a feeling of belonging, everybody needs a feeling of belonging, no matter how strong they seem. I think that's a very important point. Yeah. So we have
over to you, Raya.
Should I read the question? Okay, do you have an example of a hotel that successfully used hard times to rethink their strategy and positioning and made a significant change that had positive results? Okay, so I can answer this broadly, and then one of you can also contribute. I can say as a whole, I've seen many hotels around the world change and innovate by focusing on their local market. So staycations for locals and not only inbound tourists. And they looked at the local environment, like offering retreats for Valentine's Day, for birthdays, like come stay for breakfast and suite, spa. So I think this is something that definitely rescued hotels, as well as food delivery. So many hotels like Four Seasons implemented a luxury food delivery service. And I think that's something that hotels were used as a lifeline in the pandemic, is to focus on the local market. And that's definitely innovation. And it's going to stay. Hotels will still focus on the local market because they saw that there's a lot of potential. Like, let's say, for example, in Italy, somebody in the south of Italy does not know how beautiful the north of Italy is, and it's not really travel, but it is, because it's a new experience and you can just go there by car. So I think this is something that forever marked the industry.
I agree. I also see there was a trend with like a work vacation, like how you said, the bleisure. So people staying at hotels and working from hotels, a different environment rather than working in their homes all the time. And I see hotels are also now developing newer concepts where, just as Jonathan said, a more customizable, more technology-driven response. A lot of hotels have now what is it called? Check-in, self-check-in with your phone, and you can even get into your room with your phone. You can access all the amenities in your room through your phone. They give the full control to the customer in their hand. So that's how hotels are changing to adapt to the current situation.
Maybe I give an example as well. There's a hotel in Amsterdam called Zoku, which we've been following and had a very good relationship with for a very long time. And so they recently became a B corporation, which is triple P bottom line corporation. And Mark Jongerius, the founder, along with Hans Meyer, they pivoted pretty well in the crisis, because this is an extended stay concept. So you stay for long periods of time. And what they realized is, obviously, due to the uncertainty, people, especially in central Amsterdam, they didn't know whether they were going to be staying for long periods of time. So they did a couple of things. Each of their rooms is a studio. And what they were able to do is open their rooms up for day use for people that wanted a break. Maybe they haven't got the space at home. Maybe they just needed somewhere to get into a different environment. So they did that aspect. And then what they did, because of the restaurant situation, and during certain times, I'm sure we recall, there were such limited numbers in restaurants, or they were closed and you couldn't go out, but you could only private dine. They were in a situation where they could, because of the way their apartments are constructed, they could host mini dinners. So they invited celebrity chefs in to basically create the menu and create all of the different elements. And then, friends and family could eat together, come and dine in the apartment with all of the prepared food. They could either decide to cook it, or they could send a chef in and they could have a dining experience. So this is just one example of how they really pivoted into the local market to generate additional connection and community. And obviously that helped in terms of people talking about the property. The other aspect is, companies that have really looked to change the dynamic of their consumer base. And even before this crisis, we were really focused on community building, the importance of breaking down the walls between the inner community, which is a traditional hotel, which really kind of disconnects from the local community, but then really integrating it. It's actually what hotels and hospitality concepts always did. They were always fully integrated within the community. And over time, we transitioned to another place. And I think what we've seen during the last 12 to 18 months is that concepts are really engaging with the local community through delivery services. Right, and even if they've closed, some of them have kept their kitchens open, and they've been able to offer, innovative, creative menus through the use of technology to engage and keep all of their connections going and excite the local community. So I think, going forward, we've actually seen the building of additional revenue streams, as long as they're geared up in the right way, and they're going to continue to invest in those areas, that is way above and beyond what they were pre-crisis. So I think that's very powerful. And also, I think what we've seen is a change in consumer behavior, where we're now seeing there's so much choice that we've seen a massive increase in, dining from home and dining with friends, and, in our own personal space and environments.
For sure, there's so much choice. I think that's also could be an opportunity as well as a threat. So it needs to really stand out. So we have a statement, not really a question. Technology without human elements and integrity is not impactful for a sustainable business model, and that this person agrees with us for sure, because implementing technology is optimizing it and not replacing it with human connection, so that humans will still be there. And I think it's essential. You can't replace the human touch, but there are areas in which technology can definitely facilitate things, and especially with things that humans don't want to do, jobs that nobody wants to do. So I don't think technology will ever replace humans, but it will definitely optimize.
Yes, I agree. It optimizes what we can do for our customers.
Exactly. And the next question also links to that. How do you foresee the hospitality industry recovering with the help of governments and health ministries? I'll leave that to you guys, but I'll answer with something that I read recently. So in Singapore, the government is helping hotels very much. They implemented a new machine and a new system. You can read about it. It's a machine that's in hotel lobbies, and you check in to the hotel, because in Singapore you need to register your passport, similar to Switzerland when you arrive at a hotel. Like, it goes through the government. So you put your passport into this machine, and the government has all your information, and you just go to your room. So you have no human touch. But I think that this is a way that the government is helping the hotel. It's for free, and it protects all the employees from interactions. So this is definitely a way that governments can step in, as well as cash injections. I think it happened in many countries around the world, especially in Hong Kong. So if anyone wants to add to that, we can.
Yes, I have an example from Dubai. I read online as well. For Dubai, a lot of the government has something called Dubai Assured, which is a stamp of approval that the establishment has followed all the criteria to be safe for the customers. It is a stamp of approval that they require renewed every 15 days. That way, the government is making sure the hotel is safe for their customers. So they're serving the customers and they're serving the hotel staff. Because if the hotel doesn't pass it, they have to pay fines. They have to redo the entire process. So that way, the governments are also helping promote these businesses that follow the Dubai Assured guidelines.
Now, maybe I just add to this. I think we have to realize that, it's been 18 months where, we haven't had the opportunity to really connect with each other in a really meaningful way. And I think that going forward, the purpose of travel is going to be to connect with friends and colleagues and loved ones. And we want to be able to do that in a safe environment. We want to know that if we're going on holiday for a week, or we're meeting colleagues in a hotel or a hospitality establishment, or we're in a co-living concept, which are all hospitality concepts, that we're in a safe bubble, right? I think it's really important that we know that we don't want to be stressed about what we can and what we can't do, and be worried about the other guests and also the teams within that particular environment. So I think it's really about creating this environment where people feel very comfortable, so that they can just relax and connect with each other, meet new people, which is also, or meet old friends that they haven't met for a long period of time, or old colleagues. So I think that, community is about people coming together. In order for people to come together, they need to feel safe. And I think hospitality establishments, whether it's co-working, co-living, whether it's hotels, they have an opportunity to say, look, everybody that's entered this space, this place is fine. Now, however you do that, whether it's through testing and whether it's through, certain things that are set up, or it's checks, it doesn't really matter. But I think you have to be able to provide the guests with this certainty that they can just enjoy themselves and connect together again. Otherwise, we have to question what we're actually doing, because hospitality is about being hospitable. Hospitable is about being engaging in communities and being able to offer all of these great things that we do as a hospitality industry really, really well. So I think it's that. I wouldn't want to prescribe the solution, because I think it's up to this is where the whole creativity and innovation comes through. We need great solutions out there that allow that to happen.
For sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So we have so many questions. I'm going to choose one last one to wrap up the conversation. So it's kind of a statement again. So post-pandemic is all about loyalty. So I'm not sure if you mean loyal customers, or the customer loyal to the hotel, or the hotel customer is loyal to the guest that's staying at their hotel. But I think being loyal to a hotel we're starting to see the death of that and the extinction of that. The way young people travel is very different than the way older generations travel. When my mother travels, she tells me she goes on the Marriott website, for example, and types in the city she's going to, and then just chooses whichever Marriott is in that city. I think the young generation doesn't do that. I think we look for new things, we look for new experiences, and we're not willing to go repetitively to the same hotel. So I think loyalty programs need to definitely re-innovate, because the young generation does not want anything repetitive and does not care about loyalty programs. So that's my personal opinion. So we want new things as millennials.
Maybe I just add to this. I mean, I think, what do we mean about loyalty, right?
Definitely.
I think there's a couple of aspects. One is, we're talking about maybe consumer loyalty. I think this is the question from Peter Beda here, around, if we start thinking that we own the customer, right? Which I get this. There's a lot of companies, and especially in the tech space, it's all about owning the customer, having these databases, and you own the customer, and all the valuations are based off the back of that. I think that we really need to try and understand what loyalty is. Loyalty is that we feel special, right? We feel that we have a connection with where we're going and the people that we're connecting with. Now, if an establishment, the hospitality establishment, can do that, then we're going to be loyal. Loyalty, it's all around lots of different things, but you could say it's net promoter score. So even if I don't go back, but I really connected with the people there and I had such a wonderful experience, I'm going to recommend it time and time again, right? So, I think, that is, I think, once again, it's about being very, very personal. And I think it's around, I believe it's around customization. The more you can customize towards the individual needs of the guests that make them feel that they're the ones, they're the unique ones, and you haven't applied a broad brush approach, then the more they're going to be loyal. And I think that's where we can really take advantage of technology, because it's not about reducing staff through the use of technology. It's allowing those guests then to really connect on a personal basis. And then you can improve loyalty. In addition, I think it has a play and a benefit to employees, right? So once again, that's those same attributes and traits. The more you tell them and they believe that they're special, and that you believe and they believe that they're really there to do something that is very special and connected with the guests, or whether it's with students or whatever it might be, then they are going to be more loyal. So I think that's really, that's how I see it. We have a couple more questions coming in, which we should take as well. Raya, Jyoti.
Okay, I'm going to choose one last one, and actually the last one this time, because we don't have much time. Okay, so we have a question about the MICE business, and many people got into the habit of the virtual conference, and we definitely saw that works. We're doing it right now, and it works really well, and I think it works even better than live conversations. So is there any way to reverse that? Because many hotels depend on the MICE revenue. I mean, many hotels, it's more than 60% of their revenue channel, MICE and events and conferences. So what can be done in the place of this loss of revenue? Weddings, of course, are still going to happen, but meetings, I think, might be slowly getting extinct.
Becoming more online, yeah.
Ballroom meetings, I mean, who does that anymore? So...
Well, I think for MICE, it has to be now more creative, right? All the things that we think we can do online will then stay online, but then we have to be creative with how the MICE industry bounces back. So, I mean, I know there is a huge conference happening in Dubai called the Expo 2020, where they hope to bring, hundreds of vendors from around the world, to bring them together to display their products, to sell services, everything like that. And a way to do that is to entice the people to come out and, to be in front of each other again. We have to find a creative way to pull people out of their rooms to come back out. So I see there is scope for it, but I don't think it will recover very quickly. I think it'll be a bit more of retooling and rethinking.
Yes, and don't forget that it costs a lot to have an event. So if a company can cut it down and have it online, then why not? Even though you might feel more comfortable in a physical room, if it's cheaper, it's cheaper, and people always want what's cheaper. So I really hope that hotels find a way to make up for that lost revenue.
Maybe I respond to this. I keep going back to this human need for connection and interaction and community building. What we've been doing over the last 18 months is we've been relying on a lot of relationships that were built before the crisis, because we haven't had the opportunity to really re-engage. So I think there is going to be a future around meetings, incentives, and conference events. Yes, they're going to be more focused, and companies are going to be more conscious of their travel budgets, and there's going to be uncertainty around global travel. But there is, and having looked at recent research exactly into this topic, there are going to be some great solutions, which you can imagine, for example, like a hub and spoke approach to global events, where people travel to their local destination. And then through the use of technology, all of those different venues are connected. So you get a combination of local and you get global, but you actually mitigate the risk of people not being able to travel, so they can still connect. In maybe, you have in the US, you have maybe 3 or 4 different locations. And in Europe, you have, several locations. And in Asia, you have several locations where people can actually travel and get to relatively easy. And then you connect all of that through technology, and then you can have events. And so I see that the hybrid is going to be very powerful. And I just think that they're really looking to travel, to connect. I think there's going to be, in certain instances, we're going to see a big revival. We're going to see a big revival around leisure. And we're going to see a big revival around the need to come together from a corporate perspective. And I think there's a very good point here from Anno Ferro, who says, it's really difficult to motivate, network, brainstorm, anything around creativity. It's really challenging to do on these forums. And having tried to do this over the last 18 months, and I'm sure many people who are listening in, it's really hard. Try and hold a 4-hour workshop or a 3-hour workshop on a virtual. It's very tough, because you don't really. It's very difficult to get the energy. It's very difficult to get those interactions and those personal nuances that you need to build the relationships that are so important when you're trying to then engage in a project and take it through to fruition. So I think it will come back. I think it will come back in a different way. And I think that's where we need the creative approach.
That's why, it's a hybrid, as you mentioned, is very important, because it's it gives people to each his own. Whatever is convenient for you, you have the option. You want to interact, you get out there. You don't, you stay at home in your fuzzy slippers and your pajamas. So I think hybrid is going to be the future.
Yes. I've got, maybe there's one more, Kato Ryo. He said in Japan during COVID, many unique hotel concepts opened, and hotels itself became touristic destinations. And that was not normal before. So, I think we're seeing this shift all over the world. There's also one question here. I know this is not a promo session, but there is a question here about from Mazen Kabor, whose son has just finished university in Australia at finance bachelor's. How can you guys help him at Glion? Well, I think Raya and Jyoti are in the right place to answer this. But we've got 3 master's programs at Glion, so I would encourage your son to apply to those. So Raya, Jyoti, maybe you want to just add a couple of words as you're currently at master's at Glion.
Definitely. Mazen, if you're still listening, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can talk more about the programs and the admission process. So please do. It would be our pleasure.
So we have a comment here. So thank you very much to Peter Bader, who would like to carry on this conversation and see how we could collaborate going forward. Very happy to, Peter, if we do that on LinkedIn. I think there's one last question. We do have time, don't we, Raya, Jyoti?
No, actually we don't. So if you would like to, Jonathan, you can answer that last question while wrapping up the session. So I'll challenge you to that.
Okay. Okay. So I think in terms of a wrap up, actually this is more of a statement from Aris and Deskalakis, and actually I think it's a good wrap up, and she's basically saying concerning the beginning of the conversation about technology, I'd like to state that every traveler wants to feel connected with any employee of the hospitality venue that they visit. So yeah, he, Aris, if I got this wrong, disagrees on reducing personnel with machines. So, I just want to clarify, that's definitely not what we're saying. It's about the opportunity is around trying to eliminate standard processes that don't benefit the guests. And really focusing on hospitality experiences that do benefit the guests, and also allow employees and their teams to engage with their guests in the right way. So, I think that's the most important thing. And I think just going back to wrapping up, it's really about mindset. How can we be in a position with our teams, with our organizations, to adapt, to accept and respond in the right way so that we can really engage with this new environment that we find ourselves in and find it exciting rather than frightening. So I just encourage everybody out there to focus on that and focus on mindset and focus on their teams and themselves in the right way so that we can really move this industry forward to be as innovative and creative as it needs to be. To engage in the right way with our consumers and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan and Jyoti. It was a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much to all our watchers, viewers, whichever platform you're on. Please make sure to follow and subscribe to our channel so you can be notified of the next event. Please note that this recording will be saved on our social media platforms so you can watch it again. And if you still have any questions, you can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn, and we will be happy to carry this conversation on with you. And it was a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Enjoy your summer.